Great. Well, hi all. Call this meeting to order. We are still operating under the resolution that we passed last meeting to allow us to hold the virtual Zoom. And I'm assuming that we'll have some people coming in from the community. Everyone has had a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any concerns or questions? May I have a motion to accept?
I move that we accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got everybody? Erica? Heard Jim, Thomas, Lisa,
Yes.
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. Thank you very much. Are there any announcements from the board? Lisa?
My husband just wanted to say how much he has really appreciated the digital options. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the names. You know, the two. I'm sorry, he just screamed, Libby, Libby. Libby and RB Digital. He is very grateful for those. They have helped him get audiobooks as well as other. So he is very grateful for that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that that's been a lifeline for him. So thank everybody that's involved to make that happen.
It's great. I think the staff has done an amazing job of keeping us moving forward through these difficult times.
Agreed.
Any other announcements from the board? Jim?
No.
Okay. Are there any public comments?
If I could, Marcy, so there are two members of the public currently viewing. I would ask them to hit raise hand if they're interested in making a comment now, or if you're on the phone, you can press *9. Okay, hopefully the technology is working correctly and those folks were given a chance to comment and just don't have a comment at this time.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. There is no continuing education. I hope that you all are paying attention to the things that come through on your email from VLA and ALA. It's interesting, I think, to keep up with what the library staff is trying to keep up with. I know I went to a webinar about legal services through the library systems a couple of weeks ago, and I was appalled at how complicated it is and how much the staff is probably having to deal with to try to help folks weed their way through some of the legal documents that are available, and I think probably very helpful. But take a look at those continuing education things and see if there's anything that would be helpful to you or interesting to you. David and the library staff have been working on a statement on anti-racism, and I think David will introduce that now.
Yeah, I'd like to read it. I will screen share it, and I'll also ask Zach to add it as part of the minutes for today's meeting. This is JMRL's statement on anti-racism. JMRL stands with the Black Caucus of the American Library Association in supporting their statement condemning increased violence and racism toward Black Americans and people of color. The entirety of that statement is available at www.bcala.org. Systemic racism and white supremacist violence are deeply rooted in our nation's past and present. Despite the sacrifice and efforts of many people, the growth and spread of these systems continues to create compounding iniquities that fall on Black shoulders. JMRL strives to be an anti-racist organization. This means that JMRL not only condemns racism, but actively seeks to dismantle systems of oppression that allow racism to spread from generation to generation. As part of the journey toward becoming anti-racist, JMRL will research and reflect on its own segregationist history and strive to uncover any racist action, policy, procedure, naming convention, or culture that have grown at any point during the library's 99 years of service in this community. One of the strongest tools of oppression is the withholding of knowledge and access to information. It's within the mission of public libraries to combat that and to spread knowledge and access at every opportunity. JMRL's Equity Committee will be working on an anti-racism policy to recommend to the Library Board Policy Committee. JMRL staff will continue to promote and make available anti-racist materials in digital, print, and program format for all the people of Charlottesville, Albemarle, Greene, Louisa, and Nelson. Thank you.
Other comments from the board about this statement?
Sorry, I was muted there. I was just going to say, I think that's very thorough and well written. I think that addresses a lot of topics and says a good deal about where we intend to go and what we can do about it. That seems achievable.
And I wanted to add, I agree with what Thomas has said, and I really appreciate the line about understanding its own racist segregationist history, because as a public library, I don't know what JMRL's history was, but since Virginia and Charlottesville was so segregated and Charlottesville shut down its schools rather than integrate, I'm pretty sure that the library, it just feels to me like it would have been also segregated. So I don't know for sure. And so it'd be wonderful to know what that history was. And a lot of public libraries were segregated. So that's a deep history of a public institution serving white supremacist ideals rather than serving the true public. And I'm very glad to see us kind of just be very upfront about it.
If I can add there, Lisa, the library is working on a year-long research project with Lorenzo Dickinson to have a film about the history of library service, which began in 1921. And a large part of that will focus on the segregationist history of the libraries when there was a branch at the Jefferson School, the 4th Street branch. So we're researching now and coming up with some troves of information. I think I might have cut Wendy off there, though. I'm sorry.
Excellent. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I thought we had talked about a film, but also it was brought to my attention when we had the communication from several members of the public about renaming the Mcintyre room. And that led me into going back and reading about those different things. So I think within the pronouncement that you just read allows us to continue on that topic, which we decided to do last time when we meet in person. Right, but so that's a very a big plus on that end.
I think it's important especially to include the last paragraph to remind everyone that the library is a service for the entire community to use to learn. And hopefully we can bring a great deal to the education that's available to everybody in the community.
If I could just say one more thing. I like that the statement says very openly what we want to do. I'm curious to know a little bit more about how that comes about, and knowing that will be as open and transparent as we discover policies or naming conventions or other things that need to change. What's the procedure that's going to be in place for assessing those, making a decision about what the change needs to be, and what kind of outreach and input are we going to collect on that?
Well, I think that the number one tool that the library staff has, Thomas, for that is the Staff Equity Committee, which is a new committee that just started this year, and of course has not been meeting physically in the last 3 months. But that committee was already working on some of the history work here. And as I mentioned, we're working on that project with Lorenzo and doing some of the research. We were also working with the new librarian at the Historical Society to try and dig up some of what they have in their archives, because ours don't always necessarily tell the full picture. But I think from the staff end, the kind of looking at the history of JMRL is going to be done from that committee, as well as looking at current policies and procedures. I think we also have a customer service committee that will be looking with an equity lens at all of our public-facing policies and procedures to make sure that they aren't kind of by design not equitable. Basically, some of them have grown over 99 years of policies from public libraries. So on that end, I think both of those would come back to the library board if there were things that needed to change. We already have on the agenda today a brief discussion of the working group for the Mcintyre room. So I think that that's going to be an example of the type of work that JMRL will engage in moving forward.
Terrific. Thank you.
Has any consideration been made for culturally sensitive, responsive, dealing with the public and how individuals address and talk to not only Black and brown people, but all people? And by the way, what was written was good, but that I didn't hear that anywhere. And if I need to elaborate, I can, if you're not sure that you understand me.
What I'm hearing is that you're interested in ways that that the library is gonna gauge how the library staff are communicating with the public, basically,
Yes.
and making sure that they're being equitable in all of their interactions.
Yes. And also watching how people are addressed and how they are, and no one has called me to say that there is a problem, but I think that a lot of times people, and especially in this climate that we're in, people are not always aware of how they might address someone that they are not familiar with. So public relations and communications and cultural response.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a great suggestion. I'll look and see if there's training that we can have for our staff to make sure that we talk a lot with them about being equitable in service. So making sure that the service that you extend is the same, no matter who is in front of you, basically, that when we do new staff training now, we talk about implicit bias and the split-second decisions that customer service representatives have to make about, well, who gets the smile, which is exactly what you're saying, who gets walked over to the bookshelf to get the book, who gets the extra few minutes of attention and whatnot, and making sure that there's always a lens in there for each individual to say, am I doing everything I can for the person in front of me? And am I doing the same thing for the person in front of me that I was doing for the last person in front of me?
Exactly.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Great feedback.
Is there anyone else who has a comment to make about this statement? It's something that we will revisit once it's had a chance to go through a couple of other iterations, but I think it's an important thing for us to have on the record now in these difficult times for everyone in our community and in the nation and in the world. We'll move on to new business. David has an update on COVID-19 and the library services.
Yes, I hope that you all had a chance to look over the Tier 3 guidelines that I sent out. I apologize for it was Friday and today's Monday, so I'm sure you didn't want to spend all weekend reading library planning documents, but this is the working document that the Emergency Planning Committee and administration have been using for the past month as we prepare for a move to Tier 3, which is limited in-building service. This is a big leap for the library and library staff. Tier 4 has gone swimmingly. The curbside has been safe. It's been manageable. It's gone really well. I think Tier 3 will be the same, will be safe and will be manageable as long as we follow the guidelines that are laid out there. So you all have a link to that. This has been a target date of July 6th. We've been using that date for a few weeks now so that we can plan things out and order things in advance so that they would be there. Some of that was based on Albemarle County's statements about reopening the county office building. Their plan was July 6th, but they're going to revisit in the last week of June to make a final decision. So that makes sense to me that we would review this up through the beginning of next week and see whether or not July 6th would be a doable date for some limited in-building service. This would be basically the same hours as the current curbside with the addition of some Monday evening hours, because currently there are no evening hours. So it would be 4 hours on Monday evening, 3 to 7. Not every branch is going to be able to move in lockstep with that. The Scottsville Library, because of its size and staffing, is going to have to remain curbside for a little while. it looks like Gordon Avenue, in order to accommodate some of what the Friends need to do, and also because of the space, will also remain curbside throughout Tier 3, or at least for the beginning of Tier 3 as we reevaluate. So I would really like to publicly thank that Emergency Planning Committee, which is Krista Farrell, Brittany Eversberg, Haley Tompkins, Lindsay Idison, Jerry Carchidi, and Peter Mano from the Friends has also been participating for the work that they've done. If you read through the document, you can see masks will be required, and they are required now of all staff, unless they're in a closed office. I'm at the library now, but if my door was open, Donnelly's right on the other side, we would both have masks on. We are also requiring masks of the public, but we'll provide service if it can be done with social distancing. If folks don't have a mask, we will be providing masks. We got 4,000 masks from the health department last week that we've been distributing at curbside. Those are almost gone. We've gone through about 3,000 of those in the first 6 days of service, which is great, but we're going to have to be procuring more. Jerry already had a stockpile that we had been working on for our staff, so. I'll be providing masks, providing service if it can be done with 6 feet of distance. So it could be something like if somebody comes in, they need to get their book, they don't have a mask, offer them a mask, they refuse, check the book out. That's the end of the transaction. But if somebody comes in and they need more service than that, we might have to say no at that point. So sit down at the computer. I need to fill out this form or whatnot. We might have to say, I'm sorry, I cannot do that safely. You're going to have to come back with a mask, or here's a mask for you. So I know there are a lot of questions about masks in public buildings. It is required by the state, by law, to wear a mask in a public building, but there are a lot of questions, obviously, about enforcement of that. And I know that locally, the library is the messaging to the public will be, if you want to continue to get library service, we're going to need to ask that you follow these procedures, or else there's the chance that we're going to have to shut it down. So hopefully that will go well. We're moving most of our holds to self-check in most locations, so people can come in. The holds are there for them, pick their own, check them out by themselves, which is already the way that Crozet, Green, and Northside do their holds pickups. Still no programs or meetings during Tier 3 besides the virtual ones that are being offered. So outside of when can I donate books, this is the #1 question about meeting room space. People need meeting room space and they're trying to find places for it. So that's a Tier 2 thing. We'll keep looking at the data for that. Lots and lots of cleaning still from our staff. There's an enhanced cleaning checklist that each location has for all their high touch areas, and we're working with the jurisdictions to make sure that they're prepared for the fact that these buildings are going to open to the public. So there's a lot more information in that document, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I am holding on Monday for all staff, next Monday, a town hall to answer any questions about staffing levels, extended leave, things like that that might come up. The managers are working hard now to come up with schedules for all of them to do some public service and to accommodate the needs that we can for people in high-risk situations. I'm happy to answer any questions about the planning process.
You know, one of the issues that will be particularly important in some of the outlying areas is computer use, computer availability in the libraries for people who don't have either broadband access or actually computer terminals at home. How is that being looked at in terms of motion over the summer?
Well, I think every outlying branch is going to have access to their public computers during Tier 3, albeit there'll be not as many. Every other machine basically will be in service. So you might see chairs upside down or whatever we need to do at a location to take some computers out of service. The only real issue there is Scottsville, and Megan England has been a big advocate for trying to figure out a way to do service. I think we're going to do by appointment only. 1 person per hour will be able to come in and use computer service for 4 hours a day. So they'll be able to serve over time a broad swath of the population there, but not in the volume that we're used to seeing. So I believe that means that every location will have some sort of access to computers. We also purchased 25 new Chromebooks that are available for use to check out, basically. They only work on the library's Wi-Fi, so they can be used directly outside a building if need be. But if you remove it from that, it won't work in your own Wi-Fi or some other public network. So that's been, Marcy, the #1 concern of staff and the main reason that we're making a move to Tier 3 and to have open buildings, because without programs, you know, the checkout is working now in Tier 4. It's the computer use and access that really is the big need that we haven't been meeting, that we're going to try to meet moving forward.
I'm glad to hear about the scheduling option at Scottsville, because I know that that library would particularly have a problem because of its space constraints, but I think that's probably also true in some of the other branches as well. Any other questions or comments for David? Again, I think the board would like to express its appreciation to you and the rest of the staff for everything you've done to move this forward.
Thank you. The staff has worked very, very hard.
The next thing is a Libraries Lead with Digital Skills grant that's been awarded for the library. Celebration.
So as most of you are aware, there is JMRL policy stating that the board has to approve, procedure actually, but has to approve any grant that has been accepted. So for the second month in a row, I'm pleased to announce that there was an accepted grant. This is a Public Library Association of America and American Library Association of America, PLA, ALA, grant that's working with Grow with Google. The idea is to get funding, training, and tools to help your community grow their skills, career, and business. It's a $2,000 grant. The proposal included purchasing 4 additional Chromebooks and 5 refurbished hotspots with 1 year of data. Northside Library's reference supervising librarian Evan Stankovic took the lead on this application with support from Central Reference staff Abby Cox and Katie Gorell and JMRL's regional head of reference Sarah Hamfeld. So I'm seeking a motion to accept this $2,000 award to get this program started.
Do we have a motion to approve the grant?
So moved. This is
Thank
Jane.
you. All right. I'll do a roll call on this. Kathy?
Aye.
Thank you. Wendy?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Carla?
Yes.
Thank you, and I would vote aye as well. I'm really pleased to see the library staff doing this, because I think not only does it bring services to the library, but it also raises the awareness of other library systems around the country as to what's going on here. And I think that kind of communication can really help. The next topic that we're going to deal with again is David. This was discussed earlier briefly. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
I had a question on the, because I looked into this before. I think David and I talked about it a while ago when Google first came up with that program. Are they going to pilot it at just those 2 libraries, or will they?
Will they circulate? I think
we're not at that stage.
I'd have to check into this.
A lot of it was I'm sorry, but if we're talking about the same program, a lot of it was providing training and workshops and whatnot in the Google program. So 2000, I'm not saying 2000 is not great. It's wonderful, but if we start in one, are we going to kind of feed it out to the other areas, or just start initially with the proponents, the ones who applied for the grant?
Well, that's a great question.
They seem to be obviously the most interested.
Right. And the library at the Central Library Reference staff has been offering Grow with Google programming for a while now, for close to a year, I think. And the first few sessions were kind of connecting folks with Google tools in the community. So they were at Friendship Court and trying to kind of connect people with tools to grow businesses, basically. And I think it was because of that experience that they heard about this grant, which a lot of people heard about, obviously. And the idea was to grow that program here, but I think that we could look at expanding it. We could look at applying for more funds. And also I think JMRL would probably be willing to commit some resources to that. As I mentioned, 25 new Chromebooks coming in. So there is a little bit of a trickle down here with these 4 that are available for this program. There might be a few more available to go out into other locations to grow this program. But I also know that this is a bit of a pilot, and we'll see what kind of success they have here and then take it out to the outlying jurisdictions. The problem, Wendy, is the same as it is with our current hotspot.
Staffing.
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 That's a big problem. The other one is connectivity. When you get outside of the main thoroughfares, Verizon is the best system-wide, but as you well know, not necessarily always the best in Louisa County or in the...
Not yet. Not yet.
in the hooks and hollers.
Okay, I just think it's a wonderful program and a way to get more education and experience to people in the community. So I'm glad they're doing it.
Just one.
And maybe we'll get Wi-Fi
We can all hope. We can all
someday.
One thing that I have seen in the past is that Google has also offered workshops to library staff around the state to help them integrate their services through the Google programs. That doesn't have anything to do with this grant, but it's just a program that they have been running for a couple of years now. And I think it's something that we might encourage some of our staff to take advantage of on a circling basis as we hopefully move into a time when staffing is not so difficult to achieve.
That sounds great.
Are there any other comments about this? All right. The next thing is membership in the Mcintyre Room Working Group that we had alluded to earlier in the meeting. David?
Yes, so as I understood from the tail end of last meeting when Wendy brought this up, the idea was to put together a working group with staff and with several board members, and then potentially to figure out how to engage the public on this issue. So from the staff end, I myself would like to participate. Krista Farrell is the manager of that building. Abby Cox representing JMRL's Equity Committee, and Dr. Josh Howard, who works in this building, is our IT supervisor, but also has a doctorate in public history. So I think the goal today was to try to find at least 2 board members that would be willing to get involved in that project, and then we'll move forward from there. This is, again, in response to public comment that we got several months ago from folks asking that the Mcintyre Room be renamed after Gregory Swanson and be named the Swanson Room.
Are there any board members who would be interested in participating on this committee?
This is Carla, and I'd be very interested in participating.
Good.
I would be interested.
I'd be happy.
Oh, okay.
Yo, excuse me, Lisa.
I think that was that Kathy? Kathy, you said you'd
Yes,
be interested?
yes. But if Wendy wants to do it, that's fine.
I thought,
I'm very interested in having city board members represented.
you
Yes.
go right ahead.
Okay.
Right, that needs to be Charlottesville based. Well, not totally, but I understand that. I think that's great.
So I think what this group would do basically is do some research into the naming of that room, some research into the Swanson case that was tried there, discuss options, figure out a way to get some community engagement on that, and then bring it back with a recommendation to the full board.
I think it's particularly critical, this issue was brought up just a little earlier, that we do make sure we have good community engagement in this, because I'm sure that there are a lot of feelings in the community about how this should go.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Carla, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just interested in participating, and yeah, just ready to go.
Okay. Is there anyone else with a comment? I'd like to make sure that this is widely announced so that people understand that even with the ongoing turmoil that we have in the library and in the community, that we are addressing this issue very seriously, because it clearly is a serious issue for several members of our community that we want to acknowledge and respond to appropriately. Anything else? All right, we do have a survey that was sent out to you all this week. to do an evaluation of David's second year as director. And as part of that, he is going to give us now his proposed goals for the coming year. Obviously, they have been shaken up tremendously in the last couple of months, but they will form part of the discussion that we have when the board meets, hopefully in person next month, to do his annual review. David?
Thank you. And these were included in your handouts, so they're up on the public-facing webpage there. Pardon the scroll. So very simple. The number one goal that I have for the foreseeable future is the same goal that I gave to all the managers that report to me at JMRL, which is to guide JMRL through the library's COVID-19 response plan. And I don't expect that this will necessarily be a straight line. It went from 1 to 5 very quickly, and now we're slowly moving from 5 back to 1. There might be hiccups. There might be bounces back up and down. And as I said, that libraries might not all be able to move in lockstep. But my number one goal is to provide service to the community throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and at the same time seek to secure the future of JMRL during uncertain funding times. The second goal is the previously mentioned work on an anti-racism policy for JMRL. The Equity Committee's already started looking at other local policies, school systems, jurisdictions, things like that, other libraries to try and craft a recommendation for the board policy committee. And the final one is to update the staff training plan, which is the only one of these three that's directly tied to a 5-year plan goal. And one of the reasons that this is thrown out there is because work has already begun on this. And in fact, a subcommittee has been working on this hard, very, very closely throughout the closure here. And I think you all will be really pleased with the new training plan that will be rolled out. The idea was to roll it out at the all staff in-service day this fall, but there's some questions as to whether or not we're going to be able to get 100 people in a room to have that event. It might end up being a virtual event and each branch is together, but still that would be rolled out for staff at that point, and the board would get a chance to look at it as well. So those are the top 3 goals that I personally have for fiscal year 21.
David, one of the issues that I think the COVID closure really brought to the fore was the public interface of the JMRL website. And I know that that's something that you all had been working on prior to the library's upending back in March. But I think it maybe even has more urgency now than it had then, because we may be depending largely on that website for communicating with the public for many months, if not years. Do you have a plan for continuing with that process? I know there was some issues with the back end, but the public interface is the one that the public is going to have to deal with.
Yeah, the back end work, as far as I understand, is largely done at this point. So now it's UX, it's finding testing, basically. So working with the public in order to test the prototype that I shared with you all last month. It's pretty robust. It's working well. It integrates well with the new library catalog, which has been available for public use for a while now. So the idea had been to kind of focus group it, to send it out to several communities that JMRL works with, including local tech groups, the Friends of the Library, perhaps the Center for the Book, and various other groups that we work with. That all was delayed a bit because of closure, but I expect that as we start to ramp back up here, that's one of the things that will be ramped back up.
I think it's certainly going to be important for the board to have interacted with that interface sooner rather than later, so that we can help also give some input as it's finalized. And perhaps it's something that we can discuss at the next meeting more intensively.
Sure.
We don't have any recent committee meetings, but we do have some issues in old business that we can deal with. First of all, We have to set in place a slate of officers for the next year. There was a suggestion made at the last meeting that the current officers that are in place be left in place for the coming year, given the turmoil that we're under. But I would really like to have a discussion by other members of the board as to how they see this and what they think would be the best thing to do moving the library forward from an oversight point of view. Nobody has any opinions. Jane?
Jane.
Yes, this is Jane Kulo. I hesitate to speak because this is my last board meeting. But I think that when we are in times such as these and what we've seen with the instability and unpredictability in 2020 with the response to COVID-19 and the ongoing work, I think any place that we have the opportunity to have some continuity and leadership, the library will benefit. I think it may be uncomfortable for the chair of the trustees to put forward a proposal that the chair remains chair. But I support it, and I think there are many valid reasons to retain the folks that have a little bit of tenure and can continue to work with David in, you know, a really unprecedented time of turmoil from all sides. So I am a lame duck, but I'm speaking up to say I support this proposal.
Kathy?
I also support it. Sadly to say, Jane will be leaving, but I do support the continuity because of what we've gone through. And I think Marcy has done a good job. So I don't know whether I need to make a motion, but I ditto Jane's sentiments also.
Yeah, and I'd second it also. In addition to the fact I think leadership has done a fine job this year. There's an old adage about changing horses in the middle of a stream, and that homily sort of fits well now. I think Marcia's done great, and I think with all the turmoil we've undergone, continued leadership is essence right now.
Wendy?
I agree wholeheartedly.
I do too.
And thank you, Marcy, for agreeing to it.
Feel like the sacrificial lamb here. But Lisa?
I just wanted to agree with what everyone else was saying. I feel like with everything feeling so turbulent, it's nice to have some kind of stability. I think it also would be challenging to onboard people to new positions at a time such as this. So it just seems if people are willing to continue in the roles that they've had, if they're willing to do it, I think that that's I think a gift of stability in an uncertain time. And so.
Thank you, Lisa, for bringing up the onboarding and training. I was just about to make that point. We're going through an administration change down here in Scottsville, and that's absolutely going to be complicating matters. So yeah, I would be in favor of that as well.
Hey, this is Carla, and of course, I was the one who suggested, you know, the slate of officers and suggested that we continue with our current slate. And first of all, I just want to say that I really appreciate all the work that Marcy and Wendy have done. And I do feel like we really got shorted with our fiscal year this year. And so I feel like it's, you know, I'm just looking for not just continuity, but just a little bit of extra time to complete what we had hoped to complete in this fiscal year. Having said that, I would love for some of the new newer trustees to be thinking about a leadership role in the near future, so that, you know, we have like a certain level of, so that we're, I guess, more prepared when we get to the end of next fiscal year.
Thank you, Carla. Took the words out of my mouth. We have a lot of people who have joined the board within the last 2 years that I think are going to be ready to take on leadership roles in this organization and do a fantastic job. So I'm hoping at the end of this year that we will have some eager volunteers.
Yeah, I agree.
If there are any other comments, we'll take them now. Otherwise, I'll need a motion.
I move that we keep the same slate of officers for the upcoming fiscal year. Do I need to name the officers?
I think Zach can slot them in if he needs to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll do a roll call, and you're being called in the order in which you're on my computer screen. So if it's a little bit wacky looking. Kathy?
Aye.
Wendy?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Carla?
Yes.
Thank you. It's something more that we've gotten settled for going into the next year, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a good one. David?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, Marcy, while we're discussing officers for next year, that there are actually 3 seats coming up available at the end of this fiscal year here. So there's Jane's from Albemarle County, and the county is currently accepting applications for that and hopes to make a decision that they're on. I believe it was July 1st. The city of Charlottesville has Kathy's seat open, but Kathy is eligible to reapply. And I believe Kathy has been in the process of doing that. That's a bit delayed. It's not, I think that seat's not open until the end of August. And then Marcy's seat was also up in Nelson County, but she has already been reappointed. So just to give everybody that current picture of who's on the board and who's leaving.
I've been reappointed also.
There you go.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mhm.
All right. The next thing that we have to deal with is some policies that have been up in the air for the last several months and that we need to vote on this month. Carla, can you walk us through these briefly? We've been through them at least for 2 meetings. So if you can just very briefly walk us through the policies on computer and internet access. I'm pulling it up. Meeting and conference rooms, and then the photography, audio, and videotaping policy. Carla?
Hey, sorry about that. I'm at work right now, so yeah, sorry. Yeah, so we just have these 3 policies that we read over last meeting, and we just, they're just ready for a vote. Does anyone have any questions about the changes that have been made?
I think they've been pretty thoroughly discussed in the past, Carla, unless some
Yeah.
things have come up in the interim, either from the staff or from policy committee members.
Yeah, and I don't think anything has come up from the staff. Is that right,
No,
David?
there haven't been any additions since the last time this board looked at them.
Yeah, so we've looked at them for almost, I guess, 5 months now. So can we vote on them as a group, or do we have to do them individually?
I believe you could make a motion to do them as a group.
Yes, we should be able to do them as a group, Carla.
Okay. So I would like us to vote into policy 4.7, which is the computer and internet access, 5.1, which is the meeting and conference rooms, and 5.5, which is the photography, audio, and videotaping in library facilities.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for this?
So moved.
Thanks, Thomas.
Second.
Thank you. Kathy, vote.
Aye.
Wendy,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Carla.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good to have that piece of business accomplished. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems like we've been working on it a long time.
A long time. Yes. Good. And now we're back to David for voting on the JMRL fiscal year 21 budget. I'd like for him to give us any updates on the different jurisdictions that we need to hear before we take that vote.
Yes, there's only one change from the budget as it was presented to you all last month, and that was to add $2,866 back to Nelson County's funding for fiscal year 21. The bottom line is level funding from Greene, Louisa, and Nelson, and about a 1% cut from Charlottesville and Albemarle. There, in discussing the budget with Nelson, there was some confusion about that $2,800, but it made it back into their final budget for flat funding for JMRL. So again, the big picture was no cost of living increases or raises for staff, no new hours at Northside, but we were able to fund year 3 of the compression adjustment, covered the medical insurance increases for staff that happened, and able to turn sub hours at the Scottsville Library into a part-time position. So the only change was that $2,866 that went back to Nelson, and this will be the last time we'll see this proposed budget, although it might not be the last time we review this, as many of our jurisdictions are appropriating funds on a quarterly basis. They're basically looking at their budget again every few months as they start to see the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we might not be done discussing this, as Jerry reminds me constantly, but we will start work very shortly on planning for the fiscal year 22 budget. I'm happy to take any questions. The entire budget is up in your handouts and available for the public there. Once it's approved by you all, it'll replace the budget that's currently under the About section of the webpage.
Are there any comments or questions for David about the budget? Good. I wanted to thank David and Jerry especially for the work that they did in marshaling this through and getting us as a library system through this very difficult time budget-wise in the good shape that we're in. And we'll hope for better days down the road in terms of state funding as well. Do I have a motion to accept the proposed budget?
I'll make a motion that we accept the proposed.
I so move.
Thank you very much. Kathy?
Aye.
Wendy?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Jim?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Carla? Carla?
She's working.
I know she is.
Sorry, I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was muted. I didn't realize. Yes.
Thank you, and I'll vote yes as well. Thank you all very much. That's a very important part of our year's business that we needed to attend to. The next is the library budget, the library director's report. I've got budget on the brain.
Well,
David.
a few things to report on. Over the weekend, there was a pretty bad flood at the Historical Society next door, which JMRL has part of the lending library there is part of our collection, but also our IT offices downstairs. The IT offices missed most of the damage, but it was a flooding from a toilet on the 3rd floor that ran all weekend basically. And when the librarian came in today, there was several inches of water on all 3 floors. So heavy duty cleaning and dehumidifying is happening right now. They're working, the new director of the Historical Society is working very hard to recover all the materials that they can. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, I'm just letting you know that had happened. I don't think that it has affected any JMRL equipment, but our neighbors might need some help, and we'll do what we can to provide help in terms of the use of the dumpster and things like that in the next few days or weeks. Okay, so on a brighter note, I've got some statistics for you from the Tier 4 curbside service. So during Tier 4, actually since Tier 5, we've created over 700 new cards virtually, which they went through a big boom right away, and then a second boom when we started offering the curbside service. Virtual programs, regionally, we've offered 86 virtual programs with over 1,600 folks attending. The first of the big regional summer programs that was done virtually had 330 attendees. So there really are some silver linings here and lessons that we can learn. And we've long thought that, being able to expand that programming outside of library walls is a positive if possible. And of course, we've got captive audiences these days, but it's definitely, the proof is in the pudding that people are interested in that. Curbside checkout through Saturday, over 32,000 items checked out. Which is pretty astounding. As I said, Northside is lapping everybody else. They do almost twice the daily circ of the next closest, which is generally either Central or Crozet or Gordon Avenue. So that staff really deserves a lot of kudos. All staff does. This has been a tremendous flip in the way that they do business, and I'm asking them to turn around and do it again soon. But it's been really impressive, the dedication that they show. And the service is running very smoothly there. If you look at that document I sent the other day, most locations will continue to offer some variety of curbside throughout Tier 3, so that folks that are more comfortable with that as a method to pick up their materials will be able to do that. The Central Library will hopefully, as long as the construction stays on schedule here, not be offering curbside. It will just be come on in, but we'll be able to offer Gordon Avenue or Northside for folks that would like that option in town. In May, circulation for digital content was 27,000 items, so almost the same as the 5,000 less than the physical checkouts. That's up 77% from last May. As I mentioned, the health department did provide 4,000 masks to give out, no questions asked, no library card required, at all JMRL locations. That's been very popular. A lot of people reached out to me about that, and people are thrilled to be able to get a reusable mask that they can take home, wash, and use again. An update on the Central Library construction project. We're hoping to have the main floor cleared this week. The bathrooms that are being worked on are on the 3rd floor. They're being renovated, made ADA accessible. So we're glad to be able to get this project done while the building is closed. But it has meant having to come up through effectively from the reference area in the basement. There's a lift that's been going all the way up past the 2nd floor to the main floor. That lift is now gone. As long as that's cleared this week, the work will only be in the upper level, which will be okay because that won't be open during Tier 3. It's just meeting rooms and offices. So they'll be able to finish the bathroom project there. So we're hoping that cleanup on the main floor will be done this week so we can continue on with prep for Tier 3, which involves a lot of moving materials and taping things off to let the public know where social distancing lines are, which other branches have been able to do, but at Central, it's been a bit delayed because of the construction. And then, of course, the Nelson Library update. Marcy can tell you, she's there now, that the construction is down to the punch list, and staff are working very, very hard to integrate the 8,000 plus new opening day collection items that came in. It's really amazing. It's a third larger of a collection than it was beforehand, thanks to the Grow Nelson Library fundraising. It flows so naturally. I was saying earlier, it opens up the natural light, and it's heartbreaking that we won't be able to have the board meeting there. It was supposed to be right now, I think, to see this. It's special. I believe this is not money in hand yet, but Grow Nelson has received commitments that would meet the Perry Foundation matching grant they received last year. So they received several large commitments to kind of finish it off. We did get an extension on that through the end of the year, but I believe Grow Nelson has made a big milestone there that's going to secure another $100,000 from the Perry Foundation to go towards ongoing service in Nelson County. So they are still fundraising though, brunelsonlibrary.org if anybody is interested. Okay, so probably no grand opening for a while, but if in tier 3 you get a chance, I would recommend taking a drive down and seeing it. So very much kudos to Susan Huffman and the Nelson Library staff for all of their hard work, and also kudos to Josh Howard's tech services staff, which has been down there the last few weeks helping them out with unpacking those 8,000 new items. That's all I have for a director's report.
Thank you very much. We do have, yes, Jane.
Quick question, David, and this is in part because this is something that I'm looking at for my own work. We, at the Festival of the Book, we too would never really have taken on virtual programming had the need not been there. But now that the need is there and we've seen the response, we start thinking about all of the people that could not come to in-person programs. And so what we're trying to do is figure out how do we continue this even when we can do in person. Is that a conversation that you're having with library staff?
Yes, absolutely. That's a big conversation that we've been having about not only offering virtual programming now, but how to transition into a combination physical digital programming. And to be honest, Jane, we've been talking about that for a while before the pandemic. Is, you know, how do we open the doors to folks outside the building to have access? And probably in the equipment fund budget for the next year, some requests will come back for equipment to help do that. It's so much easier than when we first started talking about it. It was like, oh, you need 10 cameras in the room and all this. And now people are doing this with an iPhone, basically. So hopefully the cost won't be tremendous, but it's figuring out how to engage on both levels. It's easy to do one or the other, to do them both. I'm sure we'll be talking to you to pick your brain about how it's going.
I think I'm glad to hear that you're talking about keeping it going. And it seems to me that one of the more positive things that we've gone through in the last 3 months is that we are all much more forgiving of human error in these online interactions than we likely would have been otherwise. And I'm hoping that is something we retain. It's like, it's okay if the dog pops up or the kid comes in from behind, and that's just a part of how we live our lives. Anyway, I will look forward to talking more.
Great.
Thank you. Now we do have some other matters, and one of these other matters is saying goodbye to Jane. I think all of you appreciate the work that she's done over the years for the library. She's been an amazing role model and board member for this library and has helped move it forward. And we're going to miss you, Jane.
I'm gonna just say, don't make me cry. I'll have to turn off my video if that happens.
I have a virtual presentation of sorts, if you don't mind. It's tradition that as members leave the board, they have a book plate put into a book for each year of service that they have. I show it backwards, but it just says, in honor of Jane B. Kulo for years of service, 2012 through 2020. And staff worked on selecting books that we thought Jane would be interested in. Oh, it is reversed. I'm sorry. I'll read you the titles. Virginians and Their History. Bad glare, too. That is by Brent Tarter. Old Lovegood Girls by Gail Godwin. Passage West by Rishi Red. Funny Weather, Art in an Emergency by Olivia Lang. Unfinished Business, Notes of a Chronic Rereader by Vivian Gornick. Sure, Jane has no time to reread. The Moment of Tenderness, Stories by Madeline Langle. Booked, A Traveler's Guide to Literary Locations Around the World.
Oh.
And then finally, beautiful Children of Grass, A Portrait of American Poetry by B.A. Van Cees. And this one is a large size book, so staff will think of you all the time, Jane, as they're trying to find out how to fit this on the shelf. Thank you so much for your service. I'm going to put those back out into checkout, and unless you would like to see any, Jane, then I'll put them on hold for you. Just let me know.
I will just quickly say thank you very much. And it has, honestly, it has been an honor and a privilege. And I cherish this time that I've spent supporting JMRL. I'll continue to support JMRL. I'm a chronic complainer about having to attend meetings, but not these. And so I look forward to supporting the work as you all continue. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Right. We're coming to the end of this meeting. Are there future agenda items that people want to make sure we get in place? David?
Well, this is kind of a combo other matter and future agenda item that I mentioned briefly in an email the other day. We had bad timing on the governor's announcement of a Juneteenth holiday last week because we had just last month set the schedule for next year.
Alan.
So I'm hoping that we could place on the agenda that you all would revisit the schedule of library closings for fiscal year 21, and I can bring some options that would include ways that we could add Juneteenth as a library holiday next year. So with no objections, I'll just add that to the agenda for next month and you all can discuss.
I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Anyone else? Kathy?
Nothing.
Okay, well, we will have David's review to do, so the meeting will be partly closed next time. And I really do hope that we can meet in person, because I think that kind of discussion is much easier when we can be in person. But we will certainly let you know and give you as much warning as we can. And if there are any of you who have concerns about meeting in person, we will certainly listen to those concerns and make arrangements to try to make sure that everyone is as comfortable as possible as we move, hopefully, into more normal business.
I was wondering if the policy committee could meet before the next, like right before the next board meeting, just because we haven't had an opportunity to meet. But I know that that also brings up committee assignments and whether we're going to remain on the committees that we're currently serving on.
Yes. And David and I discussed this. I will certainly be in contact with everyone about committee assignments for the coming year, and hopefully we can have that sorted out, Carla.
Okay.
Before we make that plan. If we can meet in person, I hope that the policy committee would be willing to have at least a brief meeting to review their schedule for the rest of the year. Is that a particular item of agenda that you cover?
I just feel like we're
if we
behind.
Can't meet in person. Yes, definitely. Although I know David's been keeping an eye on it, and
It's manageable, but we need to get to work.
Yeah, we need to get some of these sort of routine reviews done. So let me see how things are going. We'll try to make the new committee appointments and then discuss with people how to go forward there. That's all right with you?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to just say I don't know how I'm going to feel next month, but I have been very uneasy about any type of in-person activities. I've been not going to the grocery store. Apparently, I only seem to go out for protests. And so if we're going to have this as a protest, I will probably come. But I do not feel comfortable sitting in a room full of anyone. I just don't feel safe doing it right now. Again, next month is next month, and maybe that will change. But, you know, I know that there's a lot of considerations with university moving forward in the fall. I mean, all of it I know is still up in the air, but I can definitely say I have reservations about in-person meetings, even though I know it's an important thing that we need to do. But I don't know. I just wanted to mention that because that's a serious concern that I have.
I too feel that way, Lisa. And in my situation, I'm the oldest daughter of a 90-year-old mother, and I'm the only one in town. And my brother is retarded to the point that he does not want to do anything. And I know that's a terrible word to use, but I am fully responsibility for anything that goes on with her. And she is in a high risk category. And so at this time, I can't, I'm basically a grocery store, Lowe's, and doctor person. And so at this time, I don't feel good about being in a group because of that.
David?
Yeah, Wendy has her, I was just going to say Wendy raised her hand.
Okay, good.
Oh, no, I agree a little bit. I was just waiting to see. So I wouldn't commit right now with the way things are going. I feel the same hesitation that Lisa does and Kathy. So I was just, well, we'll wait and see kind of old person. I am the at-risk person, but yeah, it's a little frustrating. So I'm a little nervous too. So I was just going to play it by time and see what happens with my dog, with the whole COVID situation and new tiers and whatnot. But yeah,
We certainly do need to follow what happens in the community. Just if it's any reassurance at all to you all who have concerns about this, and I do as well. I mean, when you're a physician, this is the kind of thing that's on the top of your mind always. But we have not had a hospitalization in our 4-county area, with Charlottesville included, since June 13th, even though the number of positive tests has gone up as more tests become available. And there has not been a death in the community since May 24th. I think the community deserves a lot of credit for having followed through and really pushed hard to keep all of us safe. So we will meet again later virtually to decide how to do the next meeting.
I think that sounds good,
Okay.
because if we continue with positive things, I think we all probably will feel a lot better.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it's a month away, but things seem to be changing very slowly. So I
Yes.
think wait and see is the best policy right now.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathy. I think we can take this as a joint vote. All in favor, aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
and thank you, Jane. We'll miss you.
Bye.
I'm gonna miss
We
you.
will.
It's been such a treat to get to know you. I'm like, I know a celebrity. I know the Festival of the Lady.
I think since
Don't worry,
we have,
I'll be emailing you for stuff. Don't worry.
I think since we have been unable to have a physical meeting, I think that Jane should have to attend the next physical meeting.
Y'all let me know when
Oh.
you will be holding a physical meeting, and I will do my best to make it there. So
Okay.
thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Great
Jay.
to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
And
you.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you all.
Bye, y'all. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Stay well.
Thank y'all.